The views and opinions expressed on this platform are of me, myself, and I, not any agency I'm affiliated with. So please do not take what I say personally.
I'm going to be very honest. I did not come up with most of the content for this episode because I reached out to listeners via social media and some of the better people that I've worked with. In my opinion, this topic of what makes a good partner is so important because sometimes it's just you and your partner on this call. And sometimes, even with other first responders, you may be the only ones who have each other's backs. When you spend that many hours together, when you face some weird patients or moments that truly they're traumatic and you can just talk to that person, or the instances where you look at each other and laugh because sometimes you just can't make this up. There are times when you have patients that you get their outcome and it's good, and those are the moments that will keep you going in this job. Having a good partner makes or breaks this job. But is it all about being good at this job? Or is it being a good person to work with? Because you can be great at your job, but be a terrible partner, and it doesn't even matter. A good partner is subjective, like relationships. Every partnership is different, even though it's still, in your perspective, it's you and someone else. These relationships vary because dynamics change from person to person that you work with. I've worked with people that, because of various reasons, we didn't mesh well. And patients and family members, they can pick up on that. And so it's borderline unprofessional if you or the other person can't put aside differences and fake it to make it throughout the shift and endure that you both are working toward the main goal, giving the patient the best care that you can. Again, setting aside your differences. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter how you feel about that person. When you get on that call, you need to have one goal in mind. And some of this stuff that I'm going to talk about even applies to your consistent partner that you have every single shift, but it's also all around important to keep these attributes with every person that you work with because even though you have your set partner, you may be working with someone, whether they trade, if they have to call out, etc. And especially if you pick up overtime, you don't want it to be somebody that people don't pick up with because you're you, if that makes sense. So I may be giving a broad spectrum of topics, but I want this to be aimed towards the idea of attributes you can uphold in order to be the good partner that every team needs. And in some of this, I'm just laying out things I even need to work on because I want to be the best I can at my job, but I also want to be the best version of myself for my partner or whomever I'm working with. And I do want to point out that some of this isn't even just subjective to EMS. It can be relating to like just first responders in general. It doesn't have to be just EMS. So in no particular order, I kind of organize a lot of this into four big topics. The first subtopic is going to be having a good work ethic, which can include the following. One, have good hygiene. And yes, this should go without saying, but it needs to be said. If you have to, take a shower at the station. Like, I've taken one in between shifts at a gas station, and there are ways. There are methods. You need to take a shower. Don't show up smelly, and don't come with your hair already in a mess before the shift even begins. And wear a clean, somewhat ironed uniform. It is that simple. You don't have to come with your boots shined every single shift. You don't have to come with your hair gelled. Just look presentable because it's not just a matter of the patients see you this way or family members see you this way. It's a matter of you're presenting yourself as a professional. Dress like it and act like it and smell like it. You also need to show up early. And I am calling myself out on this one. Kind of like what my dad always says, if you show up on time, you're late. And it's something that it's been almost 2.5 years in EMS and I'm still working on. So to the people that I relieve, I'm sorry. I show up for the most part on time. And if not, I do apologize. That's my bad. Somebody that I reached out to said, be able to pick lunch or dinner. And this is coming from me as someone who says, when we're picking out what to eat, I start the conversation with, I'm good for whatever you want to eat. I'm just hungry. So where are we eating? Be someone that helps with truck checkoff and restocking. And this pause was deliberate. And I'm going to say it again. For the people in the back, be someone that helps with truck checkoff and restocking. You should both be doing this job. Even if you divide it up, whatever you have to do to get through the checkoff before the shift begins, do it. And I'll even say that at times I go behind my partner and check some things. Do I trust them? Sure. For instance, I need to know that there's oxygen on the stretcher in the airway bag, there's oxygen in the main oxygen tank, whatever. It's nothing personal, and I'll even tell them that. I just need to know that it's there because there have been times when I didn't check, I trusted my partner, and I regretted it later on because I needed that thing. We all make mistakes, and there are times when we just kind of we get in the habit of how we do the check off and we look over something, we miss something. It happens. And that's why I think it's essential that you have somebody who, even though they trust you, they'll go back behind you. And on this note, be the one who helps clean up after a call. Even if you are writing that report, you are both on the call. Just pitch in. It's not that hard. You don't have to mop the floor after every call. You don't have to wipe down every single seat, every single. Literally, wipe down the monitor, wipe down the gurney, put a new sheet on the gurney, call it a day. Whatever you have to do to get through it, you both should be doing it in the back. I cannot, to this day, even as an EMT, and especially into being a medic, I can't stand when whoever's writing the report, whoever ran that call, gets up front and starts on the report. Like, dude, we were both here. And now it's going to take even longer to clear the hospital because you're deciding to be a little butthole. This one can apply to most first responders. Drive well, even when going lights and sirens. It makes a difference to drive cautiously and get us there safely versus throwing everyone around in the back, including the patient. I can only think of 2 times thus far going code where I didn't care what shape we were in by the time we got to the ER because we needed to be there. And realistically, lights and sirens don't equate to speed. It's just a warning to other drivers that say, hey, we're in a hurry. And it also lets the ER know, hey, we're taking this patient very seriously. You can go lights and sirens without being aggressive, having road rage, and slash or getting to the call or to the ER safely. Because as much as I love going lights and sirens and we get to, have control over the road, whatever, mama's got to get home at the end of the shift. I'm trying to be safe. I'm not trying to wreck the ambulance. I'm not trying to harm other drivers or put other drivers in predicaments where they're going to end up causing another wreck. And I can't stress enough the importance of this one. Be competent, know your stuff, know your skills, and be able to admit when you don't know something or you struggle with a skill or a protocol, a medication, etc. But doing better is the key. You don't have to be the smartest one on the ambulance. No one expects that of anybody. But we expect that you know what you're doing and you know how to do the thing. And if not, you speak up and you say something. It's not embarrassing if you have to admit, maybe I struggle in this area, but it is whenever we find out or your partner finds out when you're in the middle of a call. Be someone who doesn't complain after every call. In general, don't be negative because you end up just pulling each other down. Be someone who shows up willing to work and work hard. It is literally your job to take the calls. And when I'm burnt, I'll complain a little, but I also know it's my job to go to calls. If you're doing this on the way to every call, leave the field. If you're burnt and you're doing this, recognize it, fix it, and move on. But if you're not burnt, if you're literally just this way, you need to leave the field. And I'm not even sorry. It ties into the aspect of being someone who actually cares about their job because passion is contagious and can, in my personal experience from this podcast, passion for what you do can take someone out of a burnout phase and reignite that passion that they also had. Also, it ties in the most important part of this job, the patient. When you're negative, those vibes, they somehow get into the atmosphere. Not only does it affect your partner, but then you guys take that into the call. And patients pick up on whenever you have a stinky attitude. Be someone that doesn't take shortcuts. Shortcuts are just lazy and they make you look sloppy. If your shortcut is a way that's better to do something, that's one thing. But cutting corners and skipping steps will only hurt you in the long run. And again, it will affect the patient. And lastly, to wrap this subtopic up, be someone who's low maintenance. Don't be someone who your partner has to babysit or they can't find when a call drops. or someone that your partner goes into shift wondering, am I going to get a call complaint on us because of something that my partner says slash does? Or am I going to get a call from the supervisor with a write up because of something that this person is going to end up doing? The second topic, and what I think is going to be the most important one, in my opinion, respect. Respect is a two-way street. You get it if you give it. This subtopic shows that ego and arrogance have no place in EMS. You don't always have to be the smartest person on the truck. We all have weak areas, and that's okay. You may even be the least intelligent of the partnership, and that's okay. When it matters is whenever you're able to treat a patient and not leave your partner hanging versus you decided to be dumb and not speak up beforehand. And I want to start this subtopic off with saying if you have a newer partner, or even more so, if you're working with a new provider, give them patience, teach them, and help them grow. There is someone who said, there's no boss on the box. One person's credentials and pay are just higher. And this plays into something that I heard once that said something along the lines of, except for certain moments on calls, there should be no distinction between who is the medic and who the EMT is. Especially a little shout out back to my episode on BLS before ALS, because again, every call at the core should be BLS and you just build on it. So, overall, the goal of every call is being able to set aside ego and work for what is best for the patient. Have respect for one another. Treat them how you want to be treated when you fail because it is inevitable. And this is also a plug that if you're talking about other providers and you're purposely degrading them because you don't like them or whatever, you need to stop. Now, if it's something they did and it needs to be discussed and you want to bring it up to them, sure. But also, you weren't on that call. You don't understand what was going on. Be trustworthy. Be truthful in charting your reports. Be able to listen and tell your partner if you think that they have a bad idea, but watch how you say it. If you talk in a demeaning manner to your partner on calls, it makes you look like the butthole, not your partner who's about to do something stupid. For the EMTs out there, it's being someone willing to learn and take instruction on the hard calls. For the medics out there, it's being someone willing to be a teammate and someone invested in teaching their partner versus treating your partner as someone who just drives you around and hands you the stuff because they work with someone who has adopted the I'm the medic, it's my truck philosophy. So basically, treat your lower level providers like an actual person and like an actual partner. Be loyal, be coachable, be vulnerable, be sympathetic, and be a team player. Overall, like this is kind of being a recurring theme in this topic, but just be a support system. You need to have each other's backs, and you need to be able to know that you're both going to look out for each other. For instance, back in the gap with my old partner, I had him on the podcast, Logan. Logan, when he was a new hire, he didn't have his little ID badge quite yet, and we're supposed to on our uniforms, otherwise, it was a write up. So we had to stop by one of the stations where one of the supervisors were working at, and we didn't know that one of the higher level head honchos was going to be there. So we walk in, I mean, we're dressed to the nines, we look super sharp, but Logan doesn't have his ID yet. And I didn't know it was just waiting at headquarters, whatever. So we walk in and we're kind of catching up. And one of them says, Hey, Logan, where's your ID? And big stupid me, who became mama bear in that moment, I was like, oh no, we have it. It's in the truck. And they were like, oh, is it? I said, yeah, you want me to go get it? Because I will right now. Why I got so fired up, I don't know. But you know what I did? I had my partner's back and I was so ready. Absolutely so ready. Am I saying you have to be that level? No, you probably shouldn't because I almost got in trouble over it, but at the same time, having each other's backs instead of I could have looked at Logan and been like, where is your ID, dummy? And lastly, grow together in a way of reviewing protocols and meds together as well as scenarios. Is this cheesy sounding? Yes. Does it make a difference? Yes. You both can realize what you're struggling with, as well as building expectations of what one another wants to do on specific calls. And the person that I reached out to about this one said that it can also help with like the terminology and vocabulary of what the other one says. And especially if you work in an EMT medic kind of agency, it helps understand that if you look at your partner and say, hand me the BVM, maybe they're not thinking. And so you can go through the checklist whenever you do your truck checkoff in the mornings and say, do we have the BVMs? And then that's your time to say, oh, what is a BVM? Or certain medications, or whatever the case may be. There are plenty of options. The third subtopic in being a good partner is part of the idea that you need a degree of friendship. You need to build friendships outside of the job. It's not like you have to see your partner every single week, but it's so refreshing to see that person and just hang out, grab a dinner together without having to scarf it down, or maybe go camping, or catch a movie, or have coffee together. And this turns out to be a win win because you're both setting time aside to relax. And this applies to other colleagues and people you may not work with on a consistent basis. You need to build friendships in this job. As much as you need people outside of this job to be friends with, to understand what normal people go through and understand, like, there's a life outside of this job, just as equally, you need people that you can turn to and you need a support system. You can be friends with your partner. I've had some people that I don't work with all the time, but we clicked. And it's like we just fall in a step on calls because we stay in contact or because we work together a couple of times, but we have mutual interests and like we have mutual things that we both agree on and we can talk about besides just the call. Moving on, don't be awkward and be able to have a conversation. Have inside jokes. One of mine is I'm just here for good compressions based on a call I had with a good friend and a solid partner. There are moments you can have like that build the relationship, and it matters. And on the idea of being able to have a good conversation with your partner, have an ability to listen and not judge. And this mentality is when you can talk about life outside of the job and know that the other person will give advice or listen without thinking less of you. I have someone I work with at times that I unload things I reserve for my therapist, and he listens and he gives me good advice when I need him at that time. And I'm still applying it in what I'm dealing with in my own personal life in this moment. This topic of friendship also it builds into the idea that you know each other's strengths and weaknesses, but you also build one another up. Some of the best bonding moments are when I feel defeated because a call didn't go how I wanted it or how I had initially planned it on the way there when we were pre-gaming on the way to the call. And if you don't know what pre-gaming, an EMS is, it's whenever you're headed to the call and you're talking about what you're going to do or the things you'll need based on the call notes. Get your mind out the gutter. So I'm feeling defeated because the call didn't go how I wanted it planned, but my partner is next to me pointing out what went right. And so I do the same thing for them. And again, sometimes you two are the only ones who have each other's best interests at heart or each other's backs. And this last one, it takes time, but when achieved, it makes calls run so smoothly. Be able to know what the other person is thinking and think steps ahead with them. It is so powerful to have that look or that expression you can throw to your partner and they know what you're thinking. I've even heard of people having a partnership and when they see something and want to step things up, they'll look at their partner and say, have you been to Vegas? Because we need to go. The catchphrase is, we need to go, we should go. And it kind of helps tell the partner, like, without saying, hey, we need to hurry up, things are going to go bad. The partner can understand, like, oh, let's step it up, let's walk a little bit quicker, whatever. I tell my partners, if things get sketchy and this patient is going to go crazy in the back, I'm going to ask, do you see a dog out there? Because that cues my partner into stepping on the brakes and distracting the patient while I get out of arm's reach. And if you're the one driving, you should also stay cognizant of what's going on in the back. Even a 90-year-old Meemaw at certain moments or because of certain diseases and stuff, she can get feisty at a moment's notice and want to throw hands. But anyways, when you have that solid relationship, you'll know what your partner wants done next and you won't even have to ask. And it's a nonverbal understanding of what they're thinking. But it is achievable and it only helps the calls run smoother. And my last subtopic, and really one of the more important aspects, number 4, communication and feedback. It's about having open conversation for both sides, from the one giving feedback and from the one listening. and not as a way to give out excuses in defense, but to grow within yourself and as a team. Be approachable so that if your partner has feedback to give, they don't get scared because they don't know how you're going to react to them while they're talking to you. Be able to take criticism. Someone told me, at the start of my career as an EMT basic, I took criticism rather harshly, but I learned over time that this job will absolutely test you, and part of that is being able to listen to feedback without taking it as a personal jab. Teach and coach your partner, but don't take it from the I know more because I'm better mentality, but rather speaking from experience, aka don't have a big head. Someone else that I reached out to told me, let's splash and suffer, but not drown. And this applies to the idea that there are times when both of you may be overwhelmed and everything is going down the drain, and you may not have any clue what's going on. But it's a reminder that you both need to stay level headed, which is key. It also gives room and grace that maybe you're splashing around and things are not going well and you're messing something up, but at the same time, you're not going to let each other drown. You're going to have each other's backs. And lastly, one of my more favorite, I guess, pieces of advice or topic ideas within these subtopics, being a good partner is having the ability to give you the freedom to fail. You want a partner that you can work alongside with and know that you can make mistakes. Not in a way that covers anything up or is any way dishonest, but in a way that allows you each to learn from one another and to grow as a pair rather than having two providers in a silo. So, for review and what everything trickles down into, to be a good partner, have good work ethics, good communication, and true respect for your partner. Because applying these ideas and practices will not only make you a better provider, but it can uplift each other. So, that's my take on what a good partner is. And even if you apply all of this, even if you somehow remember all of this and you're able to do all the things, nobody can be the perfect partner. But these are easy attributes that not only affect you having a good shift and enjoying your job, but also those around you.
So, guys, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, future topic ideas, please email me at 22 at the lips podcast at gmail.com. Again, that's 22 at the lips podcast at gmail.com. Thanks. Never stop learning and be safe out there, friends.